Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Worldview Channel 247. I'm Jack, bringing you the latest breaking news just moments ago. Our top story tonight, a dramatic escalation between Israel and Iran that has unfolded overnight to the early hours of June 14th local time. Here's the detailed report. In the early hours of June 14th, shortly after midnight local time, powerful explosions rocked both Tel Aviv and Jerusalem. These occurred mere minutes after the Israel Defense Forces issued a nationwide alert warning citizens of incoming missiles launched from Iran. The IDF confirmed that several missiles were fired from Iranian territory, triggering air raid sirens across Israel and prompting residents to seek immediate shelter. By 1:30 a.m., according to Reuters footage, at least one missile struck ground in the Tel Aviv area, producing a massive explosion and sending a towering plume of smoke into the sky. The Israeli Air Defense reported intercepting multiple incoming projectiles, but cautioned that additional launches were underway. Within moments, the IDF launched counterstrikes targeting Iranian military positions, marking one of the most significant retaliatory actions in recent years. Shortly thereafter, Israel's Home Front Command lifted the mandatory shelter order advising citizens they could leave their safe rooms, but should remain close to designated shelters in case of further alerts. Eyewitnesses in Tel Aviv described a surreal scene: bright flashes, rumbling booms, and the steady thrum of interceptor missiles streaking overhead. Last night, minutes before midnight on June 13th, Iran launched a volley of ballistic missiles that struck at least 7 locations surrounding Tel Aviv. This barrage followed a series of Israeli airstrikes that had targeted key command centers in Tehran and crucial nuclear facilities earlier in the evening. Sources within the Israeli military asserted that these initial strikes were designed to cripple Iran's strategic capabilities and to send a clear message that any offensive action would be met with decisive force. Iranian authorities reported dozens of fatalities from their retaliatory missile strikes, while Israeli officials confirmed approximately 20 injuries, some of which were categorized as critical. The ongoing exchange of missiles and unmanned aerial drones between the two nations has escalated fears of a prolonged confrontation. Israel has named its latest military operation Operation Rising Lion, vowing that it could extend for days or even weeks. Tehran, for its part, insists its response is far from over. Around 3 a.m. local time, further explosions were heard around Isfahan province. Iranian air defense batteries were observed engaging multiple incoming targets as the Shihab-3 missiles and various UAVs continued to crisscross the skies above Iran. Iran's ambassador to the United Nations, Amir Shad Iravani, addressed the Security Council condemning the Israeli strikes and alleging that they had resulted in 78 deaths and 329 injuries in the Jerusalem area alone. He appealed to international bodies to hold Israel accountable for what he labeled blatant aggression against Iranian sovereignty. Television broadcasts from Israel showed dramatic footage of a heavily damaged high-rise in the Tel Aviv area. Dozens of cars were left charred and smoldering in its shadow. 3 nearby hospitals reported receiving about 20 casualties, some in critical condition. Firefighters described harrowing rescue operations pulling survivors from the debris. A 70-year-old woman was extracted in critical condition. Another man suffered severe facial lacerations from shrapnel. And a third patient was treated for burns, head trauma, and smoke inhalation. In total, 34 individuals were admitted to local hospitals during the height of the crisis. Meanwhile, Rafael Grossi, Director General of the International Atomic Energy Agency, confirmed that the Israeli airstrikes had struck the ground-level uranium enrichment facility near Natanz. He reported chemical and radioactive leaks as a result of the bombardment, but emphasized that the situation remained under control and that IAEA inspectors were monitoring the site around the clock. A senior U.S. official speaking on condition of anonymity disclosed that American forces provided Israel with early warning support using pre-deployed missile defense systems in the region to help shield U.S. personnel. The Revolutionary Guards of Iran claimed responsibility for targeting dozens of military installations inside Israel, with precision strikes intended as payback for the killing of several senior Iranian commanders, a top nuclear scientist, and civilian casualties. Earlier this month, the New York Times has not independently verified these Iranian claims. On June 13th, Iran's UN ambassador reiterated that Israeli attacks on Iran's nuclear and military infrastructure had killed 78 people and injured over 320, the vast majority civilians. He asserted that the missile launches were part of Operation True Promise III, a campaign initiated by the IRGC to fulfill prior warnings against Israeli military actions and to deliver what Tehran calls a justified response to what it defines as grave crimes against Iran's sovereignty and leadership. Analysts note that the name of the Iranian operation carries deep religious connotations for Shiite Muslims, reflecting themes of loyalty and justice in Islam. Experts warn that the intensifying cycle of strikes and counterstrikes could spiral into a full-scale regional war. Should Israel and Iran become embroiled in an all-out conflict, there is a significant risk that the United States, Israel's closest ally and largest arms supplier, could be drawn into hostilities. Iran's capacity for retaliation hinges largely on its extensive ballistic missile arsenal, reportedly comprising thousands of medium and long-range rockets. The 2025 edition of the Military Balance Report by the International Institute for Strategic Studies details that the IRGC's aerospace force controls over 100 launch pads capable of firing missiles with ranges exceeding 1,000 kilometers well within reach of mainland Israel. These include both liquid fuel and solid fuel rockets. The former can carry heavier, more powerful warheads, while the latter can be launched almost without warning, offering a significant strategic advantage. In addition to ballistic missiles, Iran fields an array of UAVs and cruise missiles with smaller warheads. Though slower and potentially more vulnerable to Israeli missile defenses, these platforms enhance Tehran's ability to conduct protracted multi-vector strikes. A major recent development has been Iran's induction of its first hypersonic missile in June 2023, reportedly capable of flying at 5 times the speed of sound along a complex trajectory that challenges existing anti-missile systems. This advance underscores Iran's focus on bolstering its deterrent posture against the U.S., Israel, and regional adversaries. Beyond direct missile exchanges, Iran maintains a vast network of proxy forces across the Middle East, including the Houthis and Yemen Shiite militias in Iraq, Palestinian factions such as Hamas and Islamic Jihad in Gaza, and Hezbollah in Lebanon. While many of these groups have been weakened by recent Israeli military campaigns and stringent economic sanctions, U.S. and Israeli intelligence agencies assess that they could be mobilized for retaliatory strikes against Israeli and Western interests. In a recent interview with Newsweek, a senior U.S. official affirmed America's readiness to support Israel, but also warned of Tehran's capacity to coordinate swift, multi-front responses. Although Iran publicly denies any intention to develop nuclear weapons, its supreme leaders have indicated that escalating existential threats could drive Tehran to weaponize its uranium enrichment program, undermining global non-proliferation efforts and substantially raising the specter of nuclear escalation. Early this morning, Brigadier General Abul Fazl Sheikhi, spokesperson for the Iranian Armed Forces, declared that Israel's aerial bombardments had targeted multiple civilian areas on Iranian soil with U.S. backing. He asserted that Iranian forces were now on full combat alert and warned that the next Israeli provocation would be met with a heavy blow. The general stated that the initial Iranian counterattacks began around 3 a.m. in Tehran and then spread to other provinces, with social media flooded by videos showing widespread destruction in residential areas. Israel has confirmed it carried out strikes on several strategic sites, including Natanz, Khoramabad, Kota Afarin, and other locations, emphasizing that any decision on further retaliatory options would be carefully considered. Despite U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio's insistence that America bears no direct involvement, Iran retains the option of further escalatory moves not only against Israel but potentially against U.S. assets and allies in the region. International reactions have been swift. The Jerusalem Post outlined 4 primary scenarios for Iran's next steps. Proxy attacks leveraging its network of allied militias such as the Houthis in Yemen, Popular Mobilization Forces in Iraq, Hezbollah in Lebanon, and others, all of whom have demonstrated varying capabilities in past conflicts. Ballistic and UAV strikes, continued use of drones and missiles as evidenced by hundreds of UAV and missile launches in 2024, reflecting improvements in accuracy and range. Naval asymmetry deploying IRGC naval assets and unmanned systems in the Strait of Hormuz, Gulf of Oman, or against commercial vessels suspected of aiding Israel. Conventional forces. Though Iran's regular army and air force are constrained by sanctions and aging equipment, they could be employed in distant theaters such as Iraq or the Gulf, perhaps targeting U.S. bases. On the diplomatic front, Iran has sought to strengthen ties with Russia, China, Pakistan, and India and remains active in the BRICS and SCO groupings. Tehran's foreign ministry frames these alliances as a counterbalance to Western influence, using diplomatic pressure to isolate Israel and mobilize global condemnation against its actions. Earlier today, Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei issued a statement vowing severe punishment for Israel's airstrikes on Tehran and its nuclear sites, branding the attacks as bloody atrocities that will invoke bitter consequences for the Jewish state. China's embassy in Tehran described the security situation as serious and complex, advising Chinese nationals and businesses to maintain vigilance and enhance security measures. Further afield, Australia's Foreign Minister Penny Wong expressed deep concern over the risk of a broader Middle East conflagration, calling for restraint and renewed diplomatic engagement. New Zealand's Prime Minister Christopher Luxon echoed these sentiments, warning that the potential for miscalculation remains high and that the region cannot afford additional military confrontations. Japan's Foreign Minister Yoshihide Suga pledged to redouble efforts to mediate tensions and ensure the safety of Japanese citizens in the area. In Jerusalem, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu described the Iranian retaliatory barrage as a defining moment in Israel's history, reiterating that his government had comprehensively targeted senior nuclear scientists and missile engineers who posed a direct threat to Israeli security. As of now, both sides remain poised for further action. The international community watches anxiously, aware that a single misstep could ignite a much larger regional war, one that might draw in the United States and could potentially alter the balance of power across the Middle East. We will continue to monitor developments closely and bring you updates as they unfold. For Worldview Channel 247, I'm Jack. Stay safe and good night.